Buongiorno and benvenuto back to my patio on a warm spring day in northern Italy. In this video I continue the restoration of Zio Dino's 1986 Wilier Triestina Ramato vintage road bike, with the disassembly, cleaning and reassembly of this Campagnolo Victory headset, as well as the 3T handlebar and quill stem. If you haven't seen the previous videos in this restoration series, links are in the description box below. In them, I take you on a tour of this lovely old bicycle, as well as restoring the GPMer crankset and bottom bracket. Now, without further ado, let's get cracking. To remove the big lock nut, you'll need a big adjustable spanner, like this one. The wrench flats are 32mm. You'll need another 32mm thin spanner, like this one, made specifically for headsets, to hold the top adjustable cup on the two shallow wrench flats here, below the lock nut. Slot the two wrenches into place and make sure they are sitting flush against the wrench flats, because you don't want them to slip and round out the edges of these beautifully chromed pieces. Now, undo the lock nut counterclockwise while holding the cup stationary. This one comes undone easily with little resistance. That's because I doused it with lots of penetrating oil after the nightmare I had with the bottom bracket's fixed cup in the last video. Now to remove the slotted washer. There is a slot running down the threads on the back of the steerer tube. And finally, to unscrew the top cup of the headset. It's best to use the thin spanner for this due to the shallow wrench flats. Once loose, it can be unscrewed by hand. Make sure to hold the fork because this is all that is preventing it from falling out. Here we see the upper bearings held in a cage. And carefully lower the steerer tube through the head tube, which reveals the lower bearings. These are also held in a cage and are the same size and number as the upper ones. The bearings and races look in good condition. There is no signs of rust or corrosion on the steerer tube. Time to give it all a thorough clean. I'm back with the deep clean frame, head tube, headset bearing races and with the crankset installed. Watch videos 2 and 3 in this restoration series for all the exciting details on that. Links down below. The lock nut and upper cup of this Campagnolo Victory headset have cleaned up beautifully. The bearing races and bearings are still in perfect condition. First step of this reassembly is to give everything a good greasing. I'm using Park Tool PPL1, but any all-purpose grease will do. I'm giving all the bearing races a good layer of grease. I don't need lots, like with the bottom bracket in the last video. But as always, you can never have too much. Now to put grease on the upper cup. I will only have one hand free when it comes time to screw this onto the steerer tube, so it is best to grease it now. Finally, it is time to grease the crown race and the steerer tube threads. Time to add the lower bearings, open side of the cage oriented down. Carefully insert the steerer tube into the head tube all the way. Then, holding the fork in place with one hand, grab the upper bearings and slot them into place. And now the upper cup. Screw it all the way down until it just contacts the bearings. I will make the final adjustments later. Once the cup is in place, I add the slotted washer. Line it up with the slot on the back of the steerer tube. Now for the lock nut. I'm adding more grease to its threads to help prevent future corrosion. The junction between the lock nut and quill stem is an area of potential water ingress, so this extra grease should help prevent that. Screw it all the way down and tighten it into place with a 32mm spanner. I haven't made it too tight because I will make the final preload adjustment when I have the front brake and wheel installed. All finished with the fork and Campagnolo headset. Next step is to install the 3T quill stem and handlebars. The first step is to remove the Campagnolo Victory brake levers. The brake cable must be removed first in order to reach the 8mm nut that secures the clamping collar. I'm using a small 8mm socket to loosen it. Once loose, it's just a matter of wiggling the brake lever off the handlebar. The Campagnolo Victory brake levers can be identified by the white rubber hoods and shield logo at the top of the lever arm. The disassembly, cleaning and reinstallation of these brake levers will be featured in a future video. So subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get notified when that video is available. Now to undo the pinch bolt of this 3T quill stem with a 6mm Allen key. However, this will not loosen the clamp enough to remove the handlebars. Instead, I'm using a 2.5mm Allen key to tighten a small grub screw below the larger bolt. This will spread the clamp just wide enough to allow the handlebars to move. Then it is the tricky business of sliding the handlebars out of the stem. The last thing to do is to unscrew the wedge from the base of the quill stem, making sure to check for any small washers that can be easily lost during cleaning. And through the miracle of video editing, everything is clean. I'm starting by giving the stem bolt and wedge a generous coating in anti-seize compound, Park Tool ASC1. I'll be using even more later. It's pretty horrible stuff, so keep a stack of cloths or paper towels handy to clean your fingers, or else it'll get everywhere. Now to reassemble the stem clamp. And again, I'm using anti-seize on all the bolts. Before I forget, the 3T handlebars weigh 303 grams and the 3T stem weighs 279 grams. On to the installation of the stem into the head tube. I'm adding more ASC1 directly inside the head tube. And a little more to the part of the stem that will insert into the head tube. All this anti-seize should prevent the stem ever getting stuck in the head tube, which was a real concern when I first saw the condition of this bicycle. Check out the first video in this series to see what I mean. Links in the description box below. Now I'm just loosening the wedge a bit and then in it goes. I'm inserting it well past the minimum insertion mark. I will make the final height adjustment when the bike is ready to ride. And using a 6mm Allen key, I'm tightening the wedge bolt until the stem is secure. No need for it to be super tight yet. Now to install the handlebars. I've tightened the grub screw below the clamping bolt to spread the stem clamp just like when I removed the handlebars earlier. Finally, before clamping the handlebars in place, I'm adding a little grease to the clamping surface just to prevent the two surfaces from fusing solid, which can potentially happen. And that is all for this video. Leave a comment below to tell me what you liked or didn't like. The restoration of this 1986 Wilier Triestina Ramato vintage road bike is rolling along smoothly. We're getting close to the halfway point, so there are plenty of videos to come. So like, subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when the next video is available. Arrivederci.